Ever noticed how countries like the US, Japan, or Germany are buried under trillions of dollars in debt, yet everything still seems to be working? It sounds crazy, but almost every country on Earth is in debt. So, who they borrow from? Can a country be debt-free? And what happens when a country can't pay its debts? To answer that, we have to go back long before banks, coins, or even paper money. Debt was simply a promise. Imagine you gave your neighbor a bag of grain in the spring. At harvest time, they returned it with a little extra to say thanks. No contracts, no interest, just trust. But as societies grew, debt became more complex. In the 1600s, King Charles needed money for war against the Dutch, but the treasury was empty. The nobles refused to help, so they tried something new. They sold debt to the public. In return for cash, people received a written promise to be paid back with interest. That promise was called a bond. By the 20th century, bonds went global. In 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement made the US dollar center of the world's money system. Other currencies were tied to the dollar, and the dollar was tied to gold. But gold was limited. Economies needed to grow. The US kept spending more, but didn't have enough gold to back it. So in 1971, President Nixon ended the gold standard. Money became fiat, not backed by gold or anything physical, just backed by trust in the government. Governments could print money freely, and yes, that opened the door to endless borrowing. What is national debt? National debt is the total amount of money a country's federal government owes. It's also called public debt or government debt. Just like people take loans to buy homes or cars, governments borrow when their expenses exceed the income. We're only talking about what the federal government owes. It doesn't include state-level debt or personal debt. Why do countries borrow money? So if governments can print money, then why do they still need to borrow? Printing too much money leads to hyperinflation. That's when prices rise so fast that the money becomes almost worthless. This actually happened in Venezuela, where basic items started costing millions in local currency. To avoid this chaos, governments borrow money instead. Here's why governments turn to borrowing. Governments mostly make money through taxes, but that's not always enough to pay for everything. When expenses are higher than income, it's called a budget deficit. Imagine the government collects $4 trillion in taxes, but needs $5 trillion to fund things like education, healthcare, and public services. That leaves a $1 trillion shortfall. Now what? Cut spending, schools suffer, hospitals crumble, people protest, raise taxes, prices go up, more protests. So, they borrow. Sometimes, governments have no choice but to borrow when unexpected events like wars or pandemics happen. In COVID-19 pandemic, the US borrowed $3.8 trillion, which is about 18% of its GDP. Without this, the economy could have crashed. Sometimes, countries take out new loans just to repay old ones. If done carefully, it works fine, but if not managed well, it leads to a debt trap, like what happened in Sri Lanka in 2022. Who lends money to countries? There are three main types of lenders. 1. Domestic lenders. Yes, you can actually lend money to your own government. It's called buying bonds. In return, the government repays the money back with interest. 2. The World Bank and ADB need long-term funding for infrastructure like roads, energy projects, or schools. Countries go to the World Bank or Asian Development Bank. These institutions offer low-interest loans to support economic growth, but they come with strict conditions like financial reforms or transparency requirements. They want to make sure the money is used wisely and gets repaid. The IMF. When a country is broke and no one else will lend, it turns to the IMF. The International Monetary Fund gives emergency loans to stop financial collapse. IMF loans come with tough rules. Raise taxes, cut spending, sell off state-owned companies. That's the deal. It's painful. Countries like Greece, Argentina and Indonesia paid the price after accepting IMF help. Can a country ever be debt-free? In today's world, almost never. So being 100% debt-free, it's not just rare, it's not even the goal. Look at the US, Japan, or Germany, some of the strongest economies, yet they carry massive debt. But it's managed, as long as they can repay on time. That debt helps fund progress and stability. Wiping out debt completely would mean huge tax hikes or deep budget cuts, moves that could slow down the economy. Sure, a few small, resource-rich nations like Brunei or Liechtenstein keep debt close to zero. But for most countries, trying to stay debt-free is like running a business with no credit. What happens when a country can't pay its debts? When a country can't pay back what it owes, it's called a default, and the consequences are serious. Take Argentina, a country that's defaulted on its debt more than 9 times in the last century. One of the most severe crises hit in 2001. The government couldn't pay back over $100 billion it owed. Overnight, the economy collapsed. People's life savings were locked away. Poverty skyrocketed. Angry citizens flooded the streets, banging pots and pans in protest. The government fell, not once but 5 presidents in just 2 weeks. International markets cut Argentina off. It took years to recover and rebuild trust. And even today, Argentina still struggles with debt, inflation, and recurring financial instability. It's a prime example of how not paying your debt can trigger a national meltdown. And if you're curious about what really happens when you try to print unlimited money, see this video. See you there.